Suddenly, night sky burned red from the ship's console interrupted the ships descended upon the ruins of Earth's last sanctuary. Encrypted and distant, the air was thick on the screen and despair. But amid the destruction, a single transmission crackled to life, a desperate plea for hope. The message was brief, if you're hearing this, you are humanity's was only one piece. Our survival hinges on your courage to resist. The room fell silent as the rebels processed the labyrinth of a decimated city, a ragtag group of survivors plotted their next move. Or was it merely a fragment of something much larger? Commander Elena Ward stared at a holographic map of enemy positions, its countless stars hiding both promise and peril. They think they've won. The leader turned to the crew, her voice steady despite the tremor of exhaustion in her body. We've started something we can't stop now. But we're still here. If there's more out there, we'll face it. We fight. Together, a distant rumble shook the bunker, the camera pans a grim reminder that their ship was running against the endless stars. A scout rushed in the distance, pale, faint flashes of light. They found the eastern entrance, hint at the battles still to come. We have to move now. The galaxy is far grabbed her weapon and humanity has proven it will no longer stand in the shadows by lost lies beyond by an unyielding fire. Is the Dominion truly our chance to show them what humanity is waiting in the darkness? If we fail, we're not just losing our planet next, we're losing our future. Hit the bell. The story plunges you into a world where humanity stands on the brink of extinction. In the depths of space, their once thriving civilization the fight has only just begun by a ruthless alien empire. As the survivors struggle to endure, they uncover a chilling truth: the aliens aren't here to conquer, they're here to erase. With survival hanging by a thread, the video delves into the unbreakable spirit of humanity. Commander Elena Ward emerges as a beacon of hope, leading a daring mission to turn the tide of war. Along the way, alliances are tested, sacrifices are made, and the line between hero and villain blurs. From breathtaking battles to heart-wrenching moments of loss, this tale explores themes of survival, revenge, and the resilience of the human soul. You'll see the survivors push themselves to the brink, uncovering hidden strengths and devastating secrets about their alien adversaries. But the question remains, can humanity outwit an empire that has never known defeat? Or is this their final stand in an unforgiving universe? Why you should watch? Prepare for a gripping narrative that will keep you on the edge of your seat. With every twist and turn, the stakes escalate, and the story challenges what it truly means to fight for survival. Packed with emotional depth, explosive action, and a glimmer of hope in the darkest of times, this is a journey you won't forget. The world was no longer the vibrant, blue-green gem it once was. Earth had become a shadow of itself, a wasteland scarred by years of relentless bombardment and merciless war. The skies, once dotted with drifting clouds and the golden hues of sunlight, were now a permanent shade of grey, choked by ash and debris from 1,000 fallen cities. The ground beneath the heavens was a tapestry of devastation. Twisted steel and shattered concrete jutted from the earth like broken bones, remnants of skyscrapers that once reached for the stars. Rivers ran sluggish and murky, tainted by the blood of both humans and their alien invaders. Trees were skeletal husks, their leaves long stripped away by firestorms that had swept across the continents. The air itself was an enemy. Every breath tasted of soot and ruin, carrying the acrid stench of charred earth and decay. Silence was rare, as the distant hum of alien drones patrolling the skies acted as a constant reminder of their oppressors. When the drones weren't present, there was an even more haunting quiet, the absence of life where bustling humanity had once thrived. Humanity's remnants lived underground now, deep in the labyrinthine ruins of old subway systems and forgotten bunkers. These sanctuaries were damp and dark, lit only by the flicker of salvaged lights and the glow of hastily rigged power cells. The hum of makeshift generators competed with the quiet murmur of hushed voices. Every sound echoed off the cracked walls, amplifying the feeling of claustrophobia and desperation. Outside these hidden havens, the alien occupation was absolute. Massive war machines, built like towering metallic obelisks, moved across the desolate landscapes, their movement shaking the ground with each step. These machines, controlled by artificial intelligences far beyond human understanding, scanned endlessly for survivors. Hovering above them were sleek, jet-black crafts that glided soundlessly through the polluted sky, their silhouettes sharp and menacing. The aliens themselves, known to humanity only as the Dominion, were a terrifying enigma. No one had seen their true forms and lived to tell of it. Their soldiers, faceless automatons, were clad in seamless, organic armor that shifted and pulsed as if alive. They moved with eerie precision, their glowing visors scanning for any trace of resistance. It was said that their voices, when heard, carried the weight of despair, a sound that could shatter a person's will to fight. The tone of the world was grim, heavy with the weight of defeat. Humanity had lost more than their cities and their homes. They had lost their place in the universe. For decades, they had fought valiantly, but the invaders had proven to be an unstoppable force. Entire continents had fallen within days, and any attempt to negotiate had been met with silence or annihilation. Yet, amidst the despair, a faint glimmer of hope lingered. Stories circulated in whispers, tales of a hidden weapon or a secret technology that could turn the tide. The survivors clung to these stories like lifelines, even as rations dwindled and morale ebbed away. The mood in the world was tense, a fragile balance between defiance and defeat. Every day was a battle to survive, every breath a rebellion against extinction. And in the shadows, deep within humanity's last sanctuary, plans were forming. The setting itself seemed alive, a character in its own right. The gutted cities told silent stories of resilience and tragedy. The scorched earth bore witness to humanity's stubborn refusal to surrender. The ruins were not just a graveyard but a battleground, a place where the final chapters of Earth's story would be written. It was a world on the edge, teetering between annihilation and salvation, waiting for the moment when the scales would tip. The rumble started faintly, like distant thunder rolling across the horizon, but it wasn't thunder. In the underground bunker, the sound resonated through the walls, growing louder with each passing second. People froze, their whispered conversations cut short as dread settled over the room. Everyone knew what that sound meant: the Dominion was near. The makeshift command center sprang to life. Screens flickered with grainy images from surface drones, showing a convoy of alien war machines slicing through the desolate city above. The machines moved with mechanical precision, their towering forms gleaming under the dull, ash-filled light. Accompanying them were swarms of smaller drones, scanning every crevice for signs of human life. How did they find us? The question hung in the air, spoken by a grizzled technician who was already working furiously to shut down their signal outputs. Panic threatened to spread among the survivors. Rumors of Dominion infiltrators had been circulating for weeks. Had someone betrayed them? Deep within the bunker, tensions ran high. Supplies were scarce, and morale even scarcer. Many of the survivors had lost everything: their families, their homes, their hope. Trust was fragile, held together only by the shared desperation to resist. Now, with the Dominion closing in, even that fragile unity threatened to unravel. In the command room, the leaders of the resistance gathered around a worn-out table. A holographic map displayed their surroundings, the flashing red dots of Dominion forces spreading like a virus. "They're cutting off every escape route," muttered one of the strategists, his voice tight with frustration. The stakes were clear. If the Dominion found their sanctuary, the last remnants of human resistance would be wiped out. The bunker wasn't just a hiding place, it was a lifeline, a fragile hub where humanity's brightest minds worked tirelessly to decode Dominion technology and find a weakness in their oppressors. But the conflict wasn't just external. Beneath the surface, cracks were forming within the group. A heated argument broke out among the resistance leaders. "We need to stand our ground," one of them insisted, slamming their fist on the table. "If we run now, we'll lose everything: the equipment, the research, all of it. And if we stay, we'll die," another snapped back. "We have to evacuate before it's too late. We can't fight them head-on." The tension in the room mirrored the larger conflict above ground, humanity's fight against an enemy they couldn't yet understand, let alone defeat. It wasn't just a battle for survival, it was a battle for identity, for purpose, for the hope that humanity could rise above extinction. As the leaders debated, an alert blared from the command console. A scout on the surface had sent a single, chilling message before their transmission cut off: "They've deployed Reapers." The room fell silent. Reapers were the stuff of nightmares, fast, relentless hunters that operated autonomously. Few had encountered them and lived to tell the tale. Their presence confirmed the worst: the Dominion wasn't just scouting, they were hunting. The survivors faced their first critical obstacle. Should they attempt to fight, knowing their odds were slim, or abandon the sanctuary and risk exposing themselves in the open? Neither option promised salvation. Among the survivors, fear turned to quiet resolve. This wasn't the first time humanity had been cornered, and it wouldn't be the last. Still, the weight of the moment was crushing. Lives were at stake, not just the lives in the bunker, but the very survival of the human race. Outside, the rumble grew louder. The alien machines were closing in, their cold, metallic forms relentless in their pursuit. Inside, the survivors braced for what was to come, knowing that every choice carried the risk of destruction. The conflict had emerged in full force, bringing with it questions that loomed large. Could humanity survive when faced with overwhelming odds? And even if they did, what price would they pay for their defiance? The answers lay ahead, buried in the rubble of a world that was no longer their own. The oppressive hum of the Dominion's war machines was suddenly interrupted by a distant, thunderous explosion. The sound reverberated through the bunker, shaking loose dust and debris from the ceiling. A moment of silence followed, thick and heavy, before chaos erupted. Survivors scrambled to secure the entrance as alarms blared, their shrill cries a reminder of how close danger had come. In the command room, panic simmered beneath a thin veneer of control. A scout drone feed flickered to life on the main screen, showing a towering Dominion war machine engulfed in flames, its limbs collapsing as the fiery wreck fell to the ground. Gasps rippled through the room, an impossible sight. The Dominion's machines were thought to be invincible. What just happened? Someone demanded, their voice filled with equal parts hope and disbelief. A technician quickly analyzed the footage, replaying the moment of destruction. It wasn't us, they said, their tone grim. The screen showed the culprit, a sleek, unfamiliar craft soaring through the sky. It wasn't Dominion, nor was it human technology, at least, not anything humanity had built before the invasion. The mystery deepened when a transmission crackled through the bunker's communication system. A distorted voice, speaking in a language that was alien yet strangely decipherable, filled the room. "Survivors of Earth," it said. "You are not alone. Seek the coordinates embedded in this signal. There is a way to fight back, but you must act quickly. The Dominion will not hesitate to destroy you." Confusion and excitement collided among the resistance. Was this a trap? A trick by the Dominion to lure them into the open? Or was it a genuine lifeline in a war where hope had become a scarce resource? Commander Elena Ward, the de facto leader of the group, studied the message with narrowed eyes. "Pull up the coordinates," she ordered. A map of the region flickered onto the screen, highlighting a location far beyond their usual reach. The coordinates pointed to a remote site in what was once a dense forest, a place now covered in ash and shrouded by Dominion patrols. "This could be what we've been waiting for," Elena said, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. "Or it could be the end of us." The room erupted in debate. Some argued that the message was too convenient, too perfectly timed. "We can't risk the lives of everyone here for a wild goose chase," one said. But others saw it differently. "If we don't take risks, we'll rot down here, waiting for them to find us anyway. This is the first sign of hope we've had in years." Elena silenced them with a raised hand. "Enough," she said. "We don't have time to argue. The Dominion won't ignore what just happened, and they'll be here any minute. If we stay, we die. If this message is real, it could change everything." The decision was clear, but the choice was not without consequences. If they evacuated, they risked losing the bunker, their last refuge and the base of all their resistance operations. If they stayed, they would face an inevitable slaughter. Tension mounted as the survivors prepared for the unknown. Supplies were packed hastily, weapons distributed, and scouts deployed to assess the quickest route to the coordinates. As they readied to leave, a chilling noise cut through the air, a piercing, mechanical screech that sent shivers down every spine. The Reapers had arrived. Their silhouettes loomed on the surface feeds, their jagged forms cutting through the ruins as they closed in on the bunker's location. Elena grabbed her weapon and turned to her people. "We move now," she commanded. "This is our only chance. Stick to the plan and stay together. Whatever's out there, we face it as one." The bunker erupted into a flurry of motion as the survivors scrambled to escape before the Reapers breached their defenses. The unknown craft, the mysterious message, and the burning Dominion machine had changed everything. The stakes had never been higher. Whatever lay at the coordinates could be their salvation or their undoing. But there was no turning back. The fight for humanity's future had truly begun. The ground above the bunker trembled as the survivors began their exodus. The Reapers were closing in, their shrill mechanical screeches piercing the silence of the wasteland. The air outside was thick with ash and tension as the group emerged from their sanctuary, faces drawn and eyes scanning for threats. This was no longer a place for hesitation. Every step had to be deliberate, every moment counted. The convoy moved cautiously through the ruins, their battered vehicles cloaked in makeshift camouflage. The survivors carried whatever they could, supplies, weapons, and the fragile hope that the coordinates would lead to something that could turn the tide of war. Above them, the skies were patrolled by Dominion drones, their searchlights cutting through the haze like cold, unfeeling eyes. The journey through the city was treacherous. The roads, once bustling with life, were now filled with obstacles, craters from orbital strikes, collapsed buildings blocking passage, and the eerie remnants of human civilization. The group passed a playground, its rusting swings creaking in the wind, a haunting reminder of the lives that had been lost. Every sound felt magnified in the stillness. The crunch of rubble underfoot, the low hum of engines, and the occasional cough from a survivor seemed deafening. Yet, the real threat was the silence itself, a predator's lull before the kill. The first attack came without warning. A Dominion patrol unit, hidden amidst the ruins, sprang to life. Automatons emerged from the shadows, their armor gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. Energy weapons crackled as they opened fire, their beams cutting through the air with deadly precision. Panic rippled through the convoy. The survivors scrambled for cover, returning fire with whatever they had, mostly salvaged rifles and crude explosives. A few brave souls stayed out in the open, drawing the Dominion's attention long enough for the others to find safety. The resistance fought with ferocity born of desperation. The clash of energy blasts and gunfire echoed through the ruins as smoke and dust filled the air. One of the survivors managed to lob an improvised grenade, disabling a Dominion automaton in a shower of sparks. But the victory was short-lived. Another machine stepped forward, undeterred. The cost of survival was steep. A medic, barely in her 20s, was struck by a beam as she pulled an injured man to safety. The group's sole mechanic was crushed when part of a building collapsed under the strain of the battle. Every loss was a dagger to the heart of the survivors, a grim reminder of what they were up against. After what felt like an eternity, the group managed to repel the patrol, but at a terrible price. They moved quickly to tend to the wounded, their faces etched with grief. The convoy pressed on, knowing that stopping now would mean certain death. As they ventured further from the city, the terrain grew harsher. The ruins gave way to an open wasteland, where the horizon was dotted with jagged spires of rock and the occasional Dominion war machine in the distance. Here, there was no cover, no place to hide. The emotional toll began to weigh heavily on the survivors. Exhaustion was etched into every step, their bodies pushed to the limits by the relentless pace. Whispers of doubt spread through the group. Was this mission worth the sacrifices? What if the message was a trap, and they were marching to their doom? But amid the doubt, there were moments of quiet resolve. A father clutched his daughter's hand tightly, whispering promises of safety. An elder helped carry the pack of a younger survivor, their shared burden a small act of defiance against despair. These fragments of humanity kept them moving, even as the odds seemed insurmountable. As night fell, the group reached the outskirts of the coordinates. The area was eerily quiet, the silence broken only by the soft hum of their equipment. A scout was sent ahead, their shadow disappearing into the darkness. Moments later, the scout's voice crackled through the radio. "You're not going to believe this," they said, their tone a mixture of awe and disbelief. "It's a ship. A human ship. And it's powered." Hope flickered like a fragile flame among the group. A working ship meant escape, a chance to regroup and strike back. But questions loomed large. Who had sent the signal? And why would a fully functional ship be here, of all places? As the survivors approached, the air around the ship seemed to hum with energy, an unnatural warmth radiating from its hull. The answers they sought lay within, but so did the risk of walking into a trap. The stakes had risen. The battle against the Dominion wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about uncovering the truth and finding a way to fight back. The group had no choice but to press forward, knowing that every step brought them closer to either salvation or destruction. The ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It stood tall and gleaming amidst the desolation, a stark contrast to the wasteland surrounding it. Its surface pulsed with faint blue light, giving off an otherworldly glow that seemed to push back the ever-present shadows. As the group cautiously approached, the hum of energy grew louder, vibrating through the ground and into their bones. "Is it human?" someone whispered, their voice trembling. "It has to be," another replied, though their tone betrayed doubt. Commander Elena Ward moved to the front of the group, her weapon raised, but her steps deliberate. She approached the ship's ramp, which extended toward the ground like an invitation, or a trap. Her hand hesitated over the console embedded in the hull, its symbols alien yet strangely familiar. The moment she touched it, the ship came to life. Lights flared, and the hum grew into a resonant thrum that seemed to echo across the barren landscape. The survivors instinctively backed away, their weapons aimed at the vessel. But before anyone could fire, a voice spoke, a clear, calm voice that was both human and mechanical. "Do not be afraid. You are safe here." The survivors froze, exchanging uneasy glances. The voice continued. "I am Archimedes, an artificial intelligence designed to aid humanity. If you are hearing this, it means I have been waiting for you." The tension broke as whispers of disbelief rippled through the group. "I? Waiting for us?" Elena kept her weapon raised, her voice firm. "Waiting for what? Explain yourself." The ship's ramp lowered, revealing an interior bathed in soft light. "You must see for yourself," Archimedes replied. The group hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing down on them. Finally, Elena signaled for a few of the more capable fighters to follow her inside. The rest of the survivors remained outside, their eyes darting nervously between the ship and the horizon, where Dominion patrols could appear at any moment. Inside, the ship was impossibly advanced. Smooth, metallic walls shimmered faintly, displaying streams of data and holographic projections. The air felt clean and crisp, free of the ash and despair that had become the norm. At the center of the main chamber stood a cylindrical console, glowing with the same blue light as the ship's exterior. As Elena approached, Archimedes spoke again. "This vessel was created by remnants of humanity from the outer colonies, those who escaped before the Dominion's arrival. They sent me here to Earth with a single purpose, to find survivors and equip them with the means to fight back." Elena's breath caught. "Outer colonies? We thought they were destroyed." "Not all of them," Archimedes replied. "A few escaped detection and developed technologies to counter the Dominion's overwhelming force. I carry the blueprints for those weapons, as well as the knowledge to exploit the Dominion's vulnerabilities. But time is short. The Dominion has detected my activation and will be here soon." The weight of the revelation hit hard. The survivors hadn't just been fighting to survive, they had been fighting blind. Now, for the first time, they had a chance to strike back. But there was more. As Archimedes continued, the group learned the true scope of the conflict. The Dominion wasn't just targeting Earth, it was systematically erasing humanity from existence, wiping out any trace of their culture, history, and achievements. The survivors weren't just fighting for their lives, they were fighting to preserve the very essence of humanity. "What do we need to do?" Elena asked, her voice steady despite the storm of emotion swirling within her. Archimedes' holographic projection flickered to life, a map of Earth, showing Dominion strongholds and hidden resistance pockets. "To turn the tide, you must take me to the location of the largest surviving resistance cell. Together, we can distribute the knowledge and tools necessary to mount a coordinated offensive. But first, you must defend this ship from the Dominion forces already converging on your position." Outside, the survivors' worst fears were realized as the distant hum of Dominion war machines grew louder. Shadows moved on the horizon, reapers, drones, and larger constructs that seemed to crawl across the landscape like metallic beasts. Elena turned to the group, her jaw set. "This changes everything," she said, her voice carrying the weight of the moment. For the first time, we have a way to fight back. But if we lose this ship, we lose that chance. The survivors scrambled to prepare defenses, dragging debris into makeshift barriers and arming themselves with whatever weapons they had. Fear mingled with newfound determination as the reality of their situation set in. The stakes had never been higher. The ship represented hope, a chance to reclaim what was lost, but the Dominion wouldn't let it go without a fight. As the first wave of Dominion forces approached, Elena stood at the front lines, her weapon raised and her voice steady. Hold the line. Fight like everything depends on it, because it does. The battle was about to begin, and there was no turning back. The survivors weren't just defending a ship, they were defending humanity's last hope. The air crackled with tension as the Dominion forces closed in, their war machines advancing like a relentless tide. The survivors could feel the ground tremble beneath their feet, the hum of the Reapers sending shivers down their spines. Overhead, Dominion drones swarmed like a black cloud, their searchlights sweeping the landscape in synchronized arcs. Elena Ward stood at the forefront, her gaze fixed on the incoming threat. Her weapon was ready, but she knew brute force alone wouldn't save them. The odds were overwhelming, the Dominion's forces far superior to the survivors' ragtag defenses. Yet behind her stood something worth protecting, a ship carrying the key to humanity's survival, a glimmer of hope against the darkness. Positions. Elena barked, her voice cutting through the chaos. The survivors moved swiftly, barricading themselves behind rubble and hastily assembled barriers. Some held weapons with trembling hands, others with the steady determination of those who had nothing left to lose. The first wave of Dominion drones struck like a lightning storm. Energy blasts rained down, illuminating the battlefield in sharp, staccato bursts. The survivors fought back with everything they had: rifles, grenades, even salvaged Dominion tech. For every drone they destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. A Reaper emerged from the haze, its towering frame glinting in the dim light. Its limbs moved with an unsettling grace, and its sharp, metallic appendages sliced through debris as if it were paper. The survivors opened fire, their bullets ricocheting harmlessly off its armor. Focus fire on the joints. Elena shouted, aiming for the Reaper's exposed mechanisms. Sparks flew as her shots found their mark, but the machine pressed on, undeterred. Meanwhile, inside the ship, Archimedes worked tirelessly to activate its defensive systems. The Ari's calm voice filled the chamber as it relayed instructions to a group of survivors assisting with the activation. The ship's shields are at 50%. I need more time to fully deploy the defensive grid. Hold them off as long as you can. Outside, the battle raged on. The survivors' lines began to falter as more Reapers and automatons joined the assault. A young fighter screamed as a Dominion drone closed in, only to be saved at the last moment by an elder wielding a scavenged energy rifle. The elder fell moments later, struck down by a drone's blast, but their sacrifice gave the group precious seconds to regroup. Elena's breath came in ragged gasps as she reloaded her weapon. Around her, the battlefield was a chaotic blur of smoke, fire, and death. For every step the survivors took forward, they seemed to be pushed 2 steps back. A piercing alarm from the ship cut through the cacophony. Archimedes' voice echoed across the battlefield. The Dominion has deployed their command unit. If it reaches the ship, all is lost. Through the haze, a massive construct appeared on the horizon. Unlike the Reapers, this machine was larger, slower, but infinitely more menacing. It moved like a juggernaut, its every step sending shockwaves through the ground. Mounted atop it was an array of devastating weaponry, its cannons already firing indiscriminately into the survivors' ranks. Elena's eyes narrowed. She knew this was the Dominion centerpiece, their ultimate weapon in the fight to crush resistance. Taking it down would be near impossible, but leaving it unchecked would mean certain defeat. Concentrate everything on that command unit, she shouted. The survivors rallied, directing their firepower at the massive machine. Grenades exploded against its legs, and streams of energy blasts targeted its weapons. The construct faltered but continued its relentless march toward the ship. Inside the ship, Archimedes made a desperate suggestion. Commander Ward, the ship's main cannon is operational, but it requires manual targeting. Someone must board the weapon platform and guide the shot. If it misses, the cooldown will leave us vulnerable. Elena didn't hesitate. "Cover me," she yelled, sprinting toward the ship. Bullets and energy blasts whizzed past her as she climbed aboard, her body fueled by sheer determination. Inside, Archimedes guided her to the weapon platform. The cannon hummed with energy, its targeting systems displaying the construct's weak points. "Align the shot carefully," Archimedes urged. "This is our only chance." Elena steadied herself, her hands gripping the controls. Outside, the survivors fought valiantly to buy her time, their sacrifices carving precious seconds from the Dominion's advance. The command unit loomed closer, its cannons now aimed directly at the ship. With a final breath, Elena locked onto the target and fired. The battlefield lit up as a beam of searing energy shot from the cannon, piercing through the construct's armor and detonating its core. The explosion was deafening, a blinding flash that consumed the machine and sent shockwaves rippling across the wasteland. When the light faded, the battlefield fell silent. The Dominion forces, now without their command unit, faltered and retreated into the haze. The survivors stood in stunned disbelief. Against all odds, they had held their ground. Elena stepped out of the ship, battered but unbroken. She looked out over the group, their faces a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. The cost had been high, but they had achieved the impossible. This was no longer just a fight for survival, it was a fight for victory. The tide had turned, and humanity had proven that even against overwhelming odds, hope could prevail. The battlefield was silent now, a stark contrast to the chaos that had raged just hours before. Smoke still rose from the shattered remains of the Dominion command unit, its massive frame lying twisted and broken amidst the rubble. The survivors stood among the wreckage, their faces a mixture of exhaustion, grief, and the faintest glimmer of triumph. Elena Ward leaned against the side of the ship, her weapon dangling loosely at her side. Her body ached from the battle, and her mind swirled with the faces of those they had lost. The sacrifices weighed heavily on her, each name etched into her memory like a scar. But as she looked out at the remaining survivors, battered but alive, she felt a spark of something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Inside the ship, Archimedes projected a holographic map of Earth. It highlighted the remaining Dominion strongholds and the few scattered resistance cells still fighting to survive. With the destruction of the command unit, the Dominion's control over this region is severely weakened, the AI explained. "You have created a turning point in this war." Elena straightened, wiping sweat and grime from her face. "But this isn't over," she said, her voice steady despite her fatigue. "They'll come back, stronger than before. We need to be ready." Archimedes nodded, the light from its projection casting faint blue shadows on the walls. "The knowledge stored within this ship can arm you with the tools to fight back. Spread the technology to other resistance groups. Unite them. Together, humanity has a chance to reclaim what was lost." The survivors began to move, organizing themselves into groups to tend to the wounded and recover what supplies they could. Despite their exhaustion, there was a new energy among them, a sense of purpose. The ship had become more than a tool, it was a symbol of resistance, a beacon of hope in a darkened world. As the sun began to rise over the wasteland, its rays cut through the ash-filled sky, casting the landscape in a golden light. It was the first sunrise many of the survivors had truly noticed in years. For a moment, it felt as though the world itself was acknowledging their victory, however small it might seem in the grand scheme of things. Elena stood at the edge of the battlefield, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The journey ahead would be long and brutal, but for the first time, they had a path forward. She thought about the sacrifices that had brought them to this moment and the lives that still hung in the balance. "This isn't the end," she said quietly, more to herself than anyone else. "It's just the beginning." Behind her, the survivors worked tirelessly, their movements infused with a renewed sense of determination. The Dominion had underestimated them, and now humanity had the means to fight back. The last hope wasn't just a ship or a strategy, it was the people who refused to give up, who stood against impossible odds and proved that even in the darkest times, hope could endure. And as the survivors prepared for the battles to come, they knew one thing for certain: humanity would not go quietly. The ship hummed softly in the background, a faint, constant reminder of what had been achieved and what still lay ahead. The survivors were no longer just a scattered group of desperate individuals, they were now the spark of a united resistance. Across the makeshift camp, weary faces bore faint smiles, the kind born not of triumph but of the fragile hope that something better might still be possible. Inside the ship, Elena stood before Archimedes' console, studying the holographic map that displayed the Dominion's remaining strongholds. Each glowing red marker represented a formidable challenge, but they no longer seemed insurmountable. "This is where we begin," Elena said quietly, her fingers tracing a path across the map. "We unite the resistance cells, share this technology, and fight back. We've been on the defensive for too long. It's time to take the fight to them." Archimedes' voice, calm and measured, echoed in the chamber. "The Dominion will adapt. They are relentless, and their forces across the galaxy vastly outnumber yours. But you have something they do not: an indomitable will to survive and evolve. If humanity can overcome its divisions, you may yet turn the tide." Elena looked out of the ship's window at the survivors below. They were patching up wounds, repairing equipment, and sharing stories of the battle they'd just survived. She could see in their eyes a determination that mirrored her own. As she stepped outside, the sunrise painted the wasteland in hues of gold and amber. The ruins of Earth stood as both a reminder of what had been lost and a challenge to rebuild. Elena addressed the survivors, her voice steady and resolute. "Today, we proved something," she said. "We proved that the Dominion is not invincible. That no matter how strong they seem, no matter how much they try to erase us, we can and will fight back. This is the first step, but it won't be the last. We've taken a stand, and now, we'll show them that humanity doesn't break. Humanity endures." Cheers rose from the crowd, tentative at first, but growing louder as hope began to take root. The ship, now a symbol of their resistance, stood behind Elena like a silent sentinel. But as the moment settled, a distant rumble caught Elena's attention. She turned to the horizon, her brow furrowing. The sky, once beginning to clear, now shimmered with faint lights, a formation of Dominion ships, larger and more menacing than anything they had encountered before. Archimedes' voice interrupted the celebration. "Warning, Dominion reinforcements detected. Their response will be swift and overwhelming." Elena's jaw tightened. "Then we'll be ready." The screen faded to black, the sound of the Dominion ships growing louder, and a single line of text appeared. "The fight has just begun. Will humanity's resolve be enough?" If you're curious to see what happens next, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and stay tuned for more of The Last Hope. Humanity's story is far from over, don't miss the next chapter.